Welcome back to Shadowcaster Tattoo. In today's episode, I'm going to cover how I clean my tattoo machine with an ultrasonic cleaner. Not only is sterilization important to the artist, but also the client. And the rules in my state seem a little fuzzy when it comes to the grips on the tattoo wand. So join me while I show you how to be a little extra and see what we can do to get them clean. Alright, before we get started, I'm going to show you the equipment that we're going to be using today. Of course, we have our rubber gloves, always. Several other pair that I'll be switching into as we go along to help prevent cross-contamination. Ultrasonic Cleaner. I got this guy from Amazon, of course. We have our Multi-Enzymatic Ultrasonic Cleaner, recommended for breaking the biodegradable materials such as blood and other excess nastiness off of our grip. And then we have our low-level rubbing alcohol, high-level Cav 1 wipes, and then we have our Cavicide for the soak, which we'll do throughout the process. And of course, we have distilled water for rinsing the grip off in between each solution to help get rid of that residue. And then lastly, the sterilization pouch. Normally these are used in autoclave, to mark that they've been properly sanitized. I couldn't find anything saying that you had to do that with the grips on these, since they don't actually come in contact with blood or open wounds, so to speak, if they're properly wrapped. But there are chances of that still happening if you're switching cartridges. So anyway, when we're all said and done, we're going to store the machine inside here and seal it off, just so when it goes in your drawer or other sealed location, you just know that it hasn't been exposed to anything for that next time when you open it and set up for your next client. Okay, first things first. So we assume that we would take our tattoo machine, from our dirty tray, as I call it. Normally I'd have barrier tape already, on it. But let's, for all intents and purposes, say I've removed that. And this is kind of the mid table where I would set something while I'm breaking it down. So first thing I would do is give it an overall cleaning just to make sure. Now with this particular machine, you do have to be careful with this end cap. It is not liquid resistant. And usually what I like to do so I don't accidentally turn it on is unscrew this guy and then carefully set the battery off to the side. Now I guess while we're at it, we can leave that piece off. Now this part has a transmission in it, so you want to be a little extra careful. And then the 1000 thread twist, always full of nice grease. So this is the part that I'm most worried about right here. I mean, you can take your Cav wipes and stuff them in there, but there are plenty of nooks and crannies that just make me wonder if we're being safe enough. As an example, so this is just a ballpoint drawing tip, but if you were to switch this out mid tattoo, say you need to clean some lint off the end of the needle because it's getting clogged, right? So you grab it, and then in order to get those needles out, I mean, you have to touch the end of this, which then touches the push rod. And that's where a risk of cross-contamination can come in. Now this machine and this pen tip are, they've already been sanitized, but unless you were to pull the tip out and grab it with a fresh paper towel, you could do something like that. And then clean, built up lint or skin or whatever outside the needle. Just handling the cartridge like that, you're running the risk either way. So that's the point in this. It might seem a little extra, but again, a little extra cleanliness when it comes to tattooing is not going to hurt. Whereas the opposite, Could, definitely. Now that we have it broken down, what I typically like to do, and I do wipe all this stuff off afterwards, is we completely wipe the grip. Cav 1 wipes. Please wear gloves when you use these. This stuff is horrible for you. I've may or may not have not used gloves once or twice in the past. And yeah, see, I'm even getting grease from the bearings when I greased it. So, the stuff's real bad for you. It says if you get it on your skin to rinse it in cold water for 20 minutes and call poison control. So, I mean, I haven't died yet, but you know, still. So, we clean that out as well as we can, hoping that we got everything out of there, right? But again, I mean, this is not staying on the grip for a full 1, 2, or 3 minutes. I mean, at least, I think it says 2 minutes it needs to stay on there. So we got that one wiped off. We have to clean all the debris off before we can put it in the ultrasonic cleaner. And we'll get to that in a second. As far as this guy, I would avoid touching too much of this, but the shaft, if you will. Okay. And then as far as the transmission piece, you want to be careful not to touch the motor at all. I mean, you're imagine that your gloves are covered in potential contamination, right? So do your best to just touch the shaft or the tip of the shaft, if you will, and clean that guy off. Of course, inspect for any kind of backflow, but if you're using quality cartridges, typically that's not going to happen. However, here we are. And then, of course, the piece that the shaft goes into, wipe this out as best you can. And then at the very end, I'm going to reapply grease to these pieces. So I wouldn't worry about wiping the grease off. Because man, when I got this thing, it was covered in it. Okay, so now that we have all the pieces pre-cleaned, next we're going to go to adding the solution in the ultrasonic cleaner and take it from there. All right, so next we're going to add our special cleaner into the ultrasonic machine and set the recommended time. The ultrasonic waves is what's going to create microscopic bubbles that will effectively clean every little nook and cranny inside the grip, ensuring thorough cleaning. All those little pieces. I mean, you could spray this down with Cavicide and let it sit, but I prefer this method. For me, it's a little more fun. I'm a little bit of a nerd about this kind of stuff, and so why not? This is what we used to do with stainless steel grips back on classic coil tattoo machines that did have to be autoclaved, that weren't wrapped in barrier film or anything. So this is just me taking an extra step. Okay, so first things first, you want to add the distilled water before you turn this guy on. If you don't do that, you will burn it up, ruin your machine, and then there goes another, $60+ depending on how expensive you go. I got one that's deep enough. I think it's about 5 inches deep, just to make sure. So first we will add our distilled water. Part way. And then we will add about 1 cap of the ultrasonic cleaner. And we'll top it off a little bit with up to the minimum line at least. The grips aren't that tall, but so we only need about that much. And we reach around. And it's got all the innuendos. Fire it up. And then I like to set the temperature on mine for about 40 Celsius. It goes higher than that on its own, so I had it at max and it went 5 or 10 degrees more. So that's not really the concern so much. I mean, the heat's helpful, but at least 10 minutes. And then we just drop our grip in there. Okay. And remember, this is still your dirty station, so When you're done, any of this stuff is going to need to get wiped off. So once you get your grip or grips in there, I set it for 10 minutes and then fire it off. And we'll be back. All right, now that the rinse cycle is complete, we're going to rinse the grips in distilled water and remove any remaining cleanser. It's important to dispose of cleaning solutions properly according to your local laws. Of course, contact local city governments. As far as where I live, they recommend correctly bottling it and then disposing of it at the local recycling center, which is what I do. So, well, first things first, I guess we need new gloves. And this is going to drip everywhere. So I have, which I should have done in the first place, I guess, but remove the ultrasonic cleaner. So I have this tray to take it over to the rinse area. For demonstrations purposes, I did, wrap the table here. You do want to have your sanitation station completely separate from your studio area, of course. So we are going to be rinsing this off, and then we'll be right back. Okay, drop the grip in the sink, leaving it in the rinse tray, of course, and then we have our distilled water. Just get that baby all up in there. Okay, so we will set our lid here and then grab our high level solution. Definitely important thing on Cavicide is always check your expiration dates. If you have it sitting for too long, you may not notice. So I don't go crazy with this stuff because it's a little more expensive, but fill it up just enough to cover that grip. Let's see where we're at. So just a little more. And then personal choice. I suppose you could, let it run for 3 to 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and roll with 10. Instructions say 3, depending on the high level chemical that you have, that can vary. So again, always make sure you follow those instructions. And we're off. And again, now that we've rinsed it in the high level solution, or soaked it rather, we must rinse this again with the distilled water. Yeah, the residue can stay on here even with Cav 1 wipes, so completely rinsing it off is not a bad idea for yourself and your clients. Okay, so once the grips are dry, I'm going to reassemble the tattoo machine, and then we're going to go ahead and store it in one of these sterilized bags after we reapply grease or lube to some key points on there. So it's completely dried out. We will grab this guy. And apply a little bit of super lube. Right there on the bearing. And on this guy as well. Let's screw that guy back together. Perfect. Easy storage if you need to move it. Not a big deal. So all in all, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to, do all the things. Thumbs up, subscribe, set the notification bell. That way you will be notified if I do make any more videos. And then feel free to let me know on how you clean your tattoo machines and anything you've ran into. Or if you know a better way than what I'm doing. I mean, you have any tips or tricks on? Please let me know.